another show for the Tippmann A-5. And what we'll do is we're going to do an upgrade show for the hopper, okay? Obviously with the Tippmann A-5, you only get one hopper, okay? If this goes down on you, you know, you can't put a halo on here, you can't put a rotor or a Pinocchio on here. This is all you have. So, you know, if this breaks paint or you have an issue with it, you're pretty much done for the day. So we're going to talk about some hopper upgrades. I've got some cool stuff here from Trinity Paintball. Let's also talk about the new Tippmann A-5. The 2009 model with the select fire, which is kind of cool. What they basically did was they now have a select fire selector switch, just like you would get on like an HK91 or a G3, you know, like a real gun. It's got a 3-position selector switch, kind of cool. Some of the improvements that they've done with the 2009 model, which I'm kind of excited about, is you don't need the ASA block anymore. You can put a standard ASA on here. You know, screw it right into the grip frame just like you would, you know, with any traditional gun. One of the biggest improvements that they made with the electronics is the battery out the back. You don't have to take the shells apart anymore, which is really, really nice. Another improvement that they made was the back cap here has a slit in it, so you can attach your harness to it, or your, you know, your sling harness. So when you're at the scenario games, don't feel like carrying it, you can hook a harness to this, or snap something to it, let it dangle off to the side, which is kind of cool. So going back and talking about the Cyclone hopper, okay? Obviously the internals of the Tippmann, you don't really have to mess with those, okay? Those work fine. You know, they're bulletproof, reliable. If you're going to spend money on a Tippmann, obviously, if you're going to go especially into an E-grip, the place to spend the money is going to be in the hopper, the Cyclone. Now, the local field that I play at, Cone Sports, back about a year ago, I used to pretty much maintain their entire fleet of about 65 A-5s. I would work on them on the weekends, 5 or 10 at a time. There was one time where I overhauled like 50 of them in a week, where I completely took them apart, replaced the detents, the striker O-rings, rebuilt the valves, lubed them all up, you know, put oil in the trigger sealers and stuff like that. So I know Tippmann's really, really well. I've owned Tippmann's. I've been in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I've been to the Tippmann plant. Got SMGs. I got just about every Tippmann gun ever made. So the A5, the stock Cyclone works okay, but it does have some failure points, which we're going to talk about. Over time, especially the ratcheting mechanism can break on you. The paddles that are inside there, they're pretty robust on paint. So we've got some, you know, some of these Trinity soft paddles. What are these called? They're the War Gear soft paddles, I think is what they're called, from Trinity Paintball. We've got the Trinity ratchet kit. It's probably one of the best upgrades you can put in here, is replace the plastic ratchet system on the underside with one of these. We also have a Trinity Paintball, you know, a metal piston, which is going to be really nice. This way you're not getting the bending that you get with the stock piston. We also have a nice metal piston tube. This way when, you know, when it's cycling, it's not dragging off of the plastic on the inside there. And of course, we're going to put in here something kind of cool that I always like putting in the Tippmann, so the TechT zero kick hammers. What these do is basically they alter your dwell in your Tippmann. They make your Tippmann shoot a lot faster, because these weigh about half as much as the standard hammer. So, you know, if you're going to want to shoot paint, you know, like this Pro Cap Silver, which is, you know, what we shot at World Cup, you know, you're going to want to have to put these soft paddles in there. And also, especially now, well, it's winter time when I'm doing the video, but you know, in the winter time the paint gets more brittle. So, all right, so let's go ahead and start the process of removing the Cyclone. First thing you want to do is obviously remove the hopper. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. Let's get the barrel out of the way. Now, usually the first thing that I start with is the banjo over here. So I usually just got to be kind of careful and just mind the hose that's on the banjo. And there we go. Banjo is out. Okay. And we'll flip this over. Let's get the Allen key. And we'll be able to completely remove this from the side of the gun. So let's pull that out. And then we usually just wiggle this back and forth, and out it comes. Okay, now you pretty much don't need your your A5 for the time being, so you can just go ahead and set this aside. Now let's go ahead and get into the Cyclone here. It's got 4 screws at the bottom that you're going to want to remove. Whoops. To get into the ratchet assembly here. So last screw, and we are done. Now you just usually lift this little back cap up. All right. What we can do is let's go ahead and remove the spring. And we'll just go ahead and pop up, slide out the piston. Okay. And now what we can do is let's go ahead and remove the paddles. And these paddles, like I said, are pretty robust on paint. So by switching over to the flexible paddles, then you're going to see, your guns. It's going to feed just as fast, but it's going to be a lot more gentle on paint. So let's go ahead and get this out of here. Put that aside. Now we can carefully slide the paddles out off of the stem here. There we go. Okay, so our paddles are off of the stem, and out comes the ratchet assembly. Now what we're going to want to do is, let's go ahead and start taking out some of our parts here. The first thing we're going to take out is the piston, the aluminum piston. Next thing we're going to go ahead and take out is the piston cover. They sell a complete kit. It's called the Trinity Cyclone Pro Kit that has all of this. Chances are, if you're really a big Tippmann fan, you're going to end up keeping, you're going to keep your Tippmann for quite a long time. So I just recommend just purchasing the kit so you can get it all at once. Let's go ahead and pull out the soft paddles. Basically, what we're just going to have to do here is completely reassemble the Cyclone. Completely reassemble the Cyclone, but using basically all Trinity paintball parts. So there we go. Now what I'm doing here is the little manual operation. I'm just kind of unscrewing this and sliding it out the front so I can put it. There we go. Let's drop that out. Okay. So the first thing we'll start with is let's go ahead and put this into the new aluminum one. Okay, so that's in place. Set aside the stock one, put that aside. And let's go ahead and grab a little bit of lube. And let's lubricate the metal piston here first. Let's get that in there. Okay. Now what we're going to do, let's find our ratchet. Now let's go ahead and push this pin out. So basically what we're doing is we're just taking apart Okay, now what I'm going to show you how to do is it's going to be kind of a trick showing you how to get inside your Tippmann A-5 without taking the two halves apart. And what we're going to do is install the TechT Zero Kick Hammer. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to basically slide all your internals out of the back of the gun. So let's go ahead and get started. And let's go ahead and remove the tombstone and push the push pin out. Obviously, when you do this, you always want to make sure that your gun is degassed. Let's go ahead and take a little bit of wiggling here. There we go. Out comes the tombstone. Now let's go ahead and remove the two push pins that are holding the grip frame on, and these just slide right out. Okay, out comes the grip frame. You just want to gently set that aside. And now what you're going to want to do is, using your Allen key, you're going to want to loosen up the screws here. You don't have to take them out, just loosen them up just enough to give your little the two halves of the shell a little bit of room to move. Once you have them loosened up, this is where most Tippmann owners will lose parts. They'll lose their guide rod and their spring. You want to hold this back cap with your fingers here, press down the last remaining push pin, and very carefully let this come out. Okay, if you're not careful, this spring and the guide rod is going to shoot across your room, and you're going to be on the phone with Tippmann tomorrow trying to get your part replaced. Now what you can do is, and before we do this, you always want to take your velocity adjustment screw and screw it in all the way. If it's backed out, it's going to catch right here. So if you're trying to push your internals out, chances are it's your velocity adjustment screw is backed out and inside of the body here, not allowing you to push your internals out. So you want to screw your velocity adjustment screw pretty much all the way in until you can now push out your power tube, your bolt, your striker, and everything in one shot. So now that we know this is in and it's clear, let's go ahead and we take a swab, and from the front we can just very easily push out pretty much all of the parts, or all of the main parts here. Very rarely do you actually ever have to completely take apart your Tippmann in terms of the two halves. It's just something that you don't have to do. Maybe if your detent goes bad, you may have to go in there and do that, but that's something that you usually should not have to do. If you're having to take apart the halves of your Tippmann, you're probably going a little too far in terms of taking apart your gun than you usually should. So do it the way I told you. If you're just doing basic maintenance, this is the screw that I was telling you about right here, the velocity adjustment screw. If this screw is backed out, what it's going to basically do is it's going to stop right there, and it's not going to allow you to slide your whole power tube out by pushing your swab in like I just showed you. So make sure this is screwed in, and this will all slide right out the back of the gun. Very easy. And now, as you see, you have your bolt, the little rod here that attaches the striker to the bolt, your power tube. It's all right here. So let's go ahead and take out the TechT Zero Kick. And we're going to go ahead and put a little bit of lube on it. If your Tippmann's ever burping or just doesn't seem to be acting right, or seems to run out of air a little bit faster, it's always a good idea to replace the hammer O-ring there. So we go ahead and we got this all nice and lubed up. Let's go ahead, while we're at it, we'll put a little bit and just kind of ream the inside of the body here. So just take a little bit of lubricant and ream the inside of the body. All set. Okay, now we're going to put it all back together again. So now let's go ahead and put the bolt on the power tube. Now if you look on your power tube, you're going to see a indicator here. This is up, so you always want to make sure that that is up on the power tube when you go to slide this in. If it doesn't look like it fits, it's most likely because your little indexer is pointing a different way than it should. It needs to be pointing up so that the tombstone can go in through the bottom. So we know that it's pointing up. Let's hook this here. Now you have to be kind of careful when you slide this back into the gun. If you press too hard, your striker will pop up your valve internals, and you got to go in there with a butter knife to level it all back down again. So I definitely recommend being very careful when you push this in. You don't want to push this in with your striker. You just want to kind of see if you can guide this in by hand. What I like to do sometimes, I just take a flathead screwdriver. Okay, as you can see, it's starting to slide in on its own. Let's go ahead and take my striker, put it in, there we go. Okay, now what I do is I just take it from the back here, keep pushing it forward until it lines up, and it is lined up. Okay, very, very easy. If you try to push it in with your striker, usually what's going to happen is you're going to push your valve internals out and you're going to have to push them all back in again. So there we go. So our power tube is lined up, our new TechT striker is lined up. Let's go ahead and put the spring in. There we go. The cool thing about these Lighten strikers in the Tippmanns, not that they reduce a lot of the kick and a lot of the vibration that you feel when you shoot the gun, they make the gun cycle a lot faster. There we go. Okay, so that's now locked in place. Now we can go ahead and reinstall the grip frame. That clicks into place. There we go. There we go. I'm making some progress here. Get the last one. Last one is in. There we go. Let's go ahead and make sure it works. Sounds good to me. So we've now got the TechT striker in there. We also have the new Trinity Cyclone soft paddles in here, along with the metal ratchet kit, the aluminum ratchet kit. We got the piston cover and also the aluminum rod. Everything feels free. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take it outside and shoot it. And what we're going to shoot through the gun is some Pro Caps X-Ball Silver. It's a pretty brittle paint. Usually when you're shooting Tippmanns, you want a little more robust paint than this. But let's go ahead and take it outside and let's see the Tippmann upgrade show. And obviously, as you know, we've got the TechT striker in here. We also have completely overhauled the Cyclone. So now we have this set up so that we can see the Trinity paddles. As you guys know, we have the soft paddles in here. We got the aluminum ratchet system. We also have the metal piston and also the cylinder wall here. And it's got these this exhaust porting in here. It makes it cycle a little bit faster. So I'm just going to shoot a little bit. We may pour some paint out. We'll just kind of see if we can get a good idea of how these paddles work. So far so good. And of course it's going to spray out a little bit, but that's okay. We just got a couple left in there. So great. I mean, this works great. As you guys saw, we didn't have a single barrel break. We'll unscrew the barrel really quick. This is a pretty good paint too. This is XOV1, and it's pretty brittle paint. So you look inside the barrel here. I mean, there's no chops, nothing. Nice flexible paddles, a little bit of give when we need it. So that's about it. Hopefully this helps you with your Tippmann A-5. Definitely a great investment is into investing into upping your Cyclone hoppers.